Do you have a game that you fondly remember playing as a kid, despite never owning it? Maybe it was something you only ever played at a friend's house, at a preview booth in a store, or, like in today's case, on a demo disc. For those of you under about 20 or so, God, I feel old. A demo disc was a physical CD that contained playable previews of upcoming games. They were taped to the front of magazines. Now, magazines were... Do you know what? Never mind. The important thing is that I first played today's subject, Monkey Hero, on Demo 41, which came with the UK's official PlayStation magazine in December 1998. I loved what I saw, and I replayed the demo time and time again, eventually to the point that I asked my parents for the full game. Sadly, with the Christmas shopping for that year already done and 5 months until my birthday, I never got it. Until now, that is. That's right, Mum, I have my own income now, and I'll be as irresponsible with it as I like. So, how's the game itself? Well, kid me might have dodged a bullet here. Let me explain. First and foremost, let me address the elephant in the room. This game looks and feels very familiar. You have a top-down view, real-time combat, a goal of exploring dungeons where you'll find items that give you new abilities and are used to defeat the bosses, and some moves that are just flat-out copied from The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. As a British Sega kid who was taken in by PlayStation as a refugee of the console wars, I had no idea that Monkey Hero was copying Link's homework at the time. I didn't even hear about, let alone play, this game's very obvious inspiration until its 2002 Game Boy Advance port. With the advantage of hindsight, it's impossible for Monkey Hero to feel as fresh and unique to me today as it did when I first played that demo as a blissfully ignorant child. For that reason, I'm going to just accept that this is a Zelda clone, and instead ask whether Monkey Hero is a fun and unique take on an established formula, or just a pale imitation that can never measure up. Spoiler alert, it is 100% that second one, but stick around to find out why. On the topic of this game not being Zelda, there's practically no information about this game online. Hell, I could only find 2 existing reviews of the game on YouTube. Monkey Hero is so unknown and obscure that no one's searching for it, and given that the majority of my views usually come from search results, I'm fully expecting this video to tank. If you find this entertaining, and you want to see me cover more weird-ass no-name PS1 games, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, share the video with a friend, and help this video get to at least 1,000 views. E-begging aside, let's get into the game itself. Monkey is presented to us as a random nobody miner who falls down a shaft when the dreaded Nightmare King attacks. Now, if you read the manual or watch this cutscene that only plays if you sit on the title screen for too long, you'll find out that Monkey is actually a special chosen warrior sent to what's known as the Waking World by the Dream King to defeat the nightmares. He just also happens to work at this mine? Look, this game is all over the place, and this is only the beginning of its overall sloppiness and inconsistency. In this game's defense, Monkey Hero starts out fairly strong. The mines serve as a short tutorial for the title's core mechanics, while the library gives you a fairly lengthy preview of the dungeons you'll be exploring for the rest of the game. Essentially, we learn that the Nightmare King is after the magic storybook so he can take over the waking world. In order to stop him, 8 pages of the storybook have been scattered to various dungeons across the planet, and it's now up to you to collect them before the Nightmare King does. Sure, it's a basic motivation, but it gets the job done. Granted, you do fight and defeat the Nightmare King at the end of the library, aka the very first dungeon, a choice that both caused confusion and robbed the primary antagonist of any sense of threat or power. But this is also where the world opens up and the demo ends. I was excited to see what was in store for me beyond this screen advertising the full game. Sadly, this is also the point where we start to see some cracks in the foundations and the quality of the game takes a massive nosedive. Monkey Hero already had some minor issues. Combat feels unresponsive, with your best bet being to stand in place and whack away with your staff as the enemy approaches. The AI is hilariously bad, with the enemy pathfinding being oblivious to walls. You can even attack enemies through barriers. There's an overall sloppiness to the controls, but there's nothing the presentation, world, and story couldn't potentially overcome. No, the biggest issue is that too much of the map opens up too soon with too little direction. While the game admittedly does leave breadcrumbs and hints to follow, I spent far too much time meandering around feeling completely lost and aimless. It was so bad that I accidentally wandered into a major dungeon while completely unprepared. The weird thing is that there is some degree of linearity baked into the adventure. For example, you can't enter or complete most temples without the hammer you can find back at the mines. You can't enter the Dream Shrine without the ability to capture fireflies in a gourd you find in a forest temple. There's one lair you simply can't enter without gathering the other pages first. While there's probably some wriggle room, there seems to be an intended order. The problem is that the game doesn't tell you this until you're already at the entrance of, or worse, midway through exploring, a dungeon. In my Metroid Zero mission review, I praised that game for being great at conveyance, of silently presenting enough information for a player to recognize a problem and figure out the solution. Monkey Hero, on the other hand, is terrible at this, with a number of mechanical inconsistencies. The best example I can give is in the Beach Temple. You need to reach this switch to open this door. There's a statue blocking the path that you can pull out of the way. You then come across another identical statue that you can't move. There's our inconsistency and the primary cause for confusion. Now, there's a deity in a nearby chamber that teases an item which will help us lift and move heavier objects. I assumed I needed to find that, but I'd been to every room, opened every door, and solved every puzzle that I could so far. I figured it might be an item from another dungeon altogether. No, silly me, that would be sensible and reasonable, based on the implicit and explicit information the game had provided me with up to that point. It turns out that the statue actually moves when you kill these enemies that just so happen to be in the same room as it. Again, a mechanical inconsistency. There's another statue in the same room we can push and pull, but this completely identical one only moves when we kill enemies. The problem is that the enemies are in a pit below you, so you can't reach or damage them. To kill them, you need to throw firecrackers into the pit. You get firecrackers from an instructor back at your master's dojo, and these key items are easily missable. I should know, I missed them. It's only after defeating these enemies that the statue, which is off-screen while fighting these things, moves itself. Yeah, you might not even realise that your actions did anything. So you have two identical objects in the same room that behave in different ways, meaning the player can't form a logical link. This is some of the worst UX design I have ever seen in a video game. That's assuming the game even works. In this dungeon, the door's supposed to open after you bash every post with a hammer. I did exactly that, but the door remained closed. The room's pitch black with bottomless pits, so I had to light it with fireflies that only last a limited time. The nearest place to get fireflies was 4 screens away, so every time I tried to figure out what I was doing wrong, I had to backtrack for more fireflies. In the end, I had to reset the game, but when you game over or load a save in a dungeon, you're spawned back at the entrance again, meaning I had to work my way back to the broken puzzle. Thankfully, after saving, quitting, and reloading, the door opened on my first attempt. I didn't do anything wrong, the game just never registered I'd solved the puzzle. I was seething at the tedium and wasted time. That's not to say Monkey Hero is entirely devoid of appeal or merit, however. Its character designs are cute, characterful, and charming. The world has clearly had some thought put into it, and I don't doubt there's a lore bible, even if it's poorly communicated in-game. The boss battles throw in some great gimmicks. You can't attack the majority of them directly. Instead, you have to use your items and secondary weapons to make them vulnerable. Sure, some bosses, such as the Cloud boss, are a little too straightforward and underbaked, but the majority of these encounters were a welcome change of pace. The graphics are also surprising. We have 2D pre-rendered sprites inhabiting fully 3D worlds almost a decade before we'd see Zelda's Phantom Hourglass attempt this perspective in full 3D on the Nintendo DS. It enables the world design to have a greater sense of verticality than you were likely to see from Zelda at the time. What particularly caught my eye are the lighting effects. Monkey's World is brought to life by vibrant, saturated spotlighting among architecture that reminds me of Disney's Hercules. It was rare to see this kind of real-time lighting, especially stuff that impacts objects around it, on the PS1. It even comes into play in a practical sense for puzzles and fights in initially dark rooms. Sadly, the very same lighting effects that can make it a visual treat are just a tad too much for the game to handle. I'm not sensitive to changes in frame rates and resolutions, but I can actively feel Monkey slowing down and speeding up as he walks around. The game's overall performance is horribly unstable, and I rarely experienced anything close to a consistent frame rate. It's beyond distracting, and I imagine it will be an absolute deal breaker for many of you. That's assuming you can even get the game to run at all. On PlayStation 2, the game's graphics look like pure nightmare fuel. I'm not entirely sure what's happening here, I just know it's cursed. Meanwhile, on PS3, this early loading screen before a pre-rendered intro simply freezes. Strangely, you can hear the audio for the intro playing, but the screen locks to this. For that reason, while I'd usually record gameplay on a PS3 over HDMI, the footage you've been seeing here has been my PS1 over RGB SCART. Monkey Hero's biggest crime is that I got bored. It didn't do enough to hold my attention or keep me coming back for future sessions. I kept playing long after I would have otherwise drifted away from it because I felt obligated to capture more review footage and hoped that the game might do something interesting to change my mind. While I quit Galarian's Ash out of anger and disgust, I put Monkey Hero down out of apathy and disinterest. If you've played literally every single top-down Zelda and you are starved and desperate for a similar, new experience, maybe try Blossom Tales or Soleil before you turn to Monkey Hero. I can best describe Monkey Hero as a lookalike or tribute act. It can be a fairly convincing imitation of the real McCoy, but you'll never quite shake the feeling that something's just a little bit off. I wanted to enjoy this game a lot more than I did. I was hoping to have a hidden gem on my hands. As it stands, I can see why Monkey Hero failed to make its mark, and is relegated to being a title most people have never even heard of. Again, that same lack of any meaningful legacy also means people won't be searching for this video, so if you've made it to the end here, I really would appreciate any subs, comments, likes, and shares that can help battle that cursed algorithm. As always, a massive thank you to my patrons, Chuckleson and Crow. If you'd like to join them and support this channel, links are in the description. See you next time.